This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of Masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 316, I think, entitled Why Women Need to Become Female Masculists. Abstract. This flyer spells out why women need to become female masculists. That is, in order for women to get sperm from men who refuse to marry, who reject paternity in a fluffy feminist hypocrite dominated divorce court system. When women become female masculists and push the gender politicians to menfair the gender laws, then men will be more willing to give them their sperm. As many women become female masculists due to the heavy masculist moral pressure on women to fip up and not be fluffy parasite vermin, then more MGTOWs will convert themselves into angry, politically oriented masculists, because it'll be realistic and not a waste of time and energy for them to get into gender politics. The flyer itself. Why women need to become female masculists. The short answer to the above question is in order to get a man, in order to be able to get sperm from a man to have a baby. Young women in Western countries are really waking up and panicking that the odds are high that they will not have a baby, and that all that they will get from men is to be pumped and dumped and not be given men's sperm. Why is this happening to young women? Because their mothers are fluffy feminist hypocrites, feminazi bitches, who have taken over the divorce courts and made them toxic for men. Divorce is so bad for men, and hence marriage, that in the Western countries 2/3 of young men under 35 refuse to marry, refuse to have kids, and spend their money on themselves, utterly rejecting the traditional man-slave role of working for a woman. Men are so angry against the feminazi bitches for what these bitches have done to the divorce courts that within a decade, probably more than 90% of young men will be rejecting marriage, rejecting paternity, and living the MGTOW lifestyle in practice, if not in philosophy. But since the MGTOW message is spreading rapidly now, within a decade nearly all men will know about it and the movement's ideas. As young women learn about MGTOW and masculist ideas, they're learning that the root cause of their manlessness and babyless problems is the toxicity of the divorce courts for men, generated by the fluffy feminist hypocrites, the feminazi bitches, so that these young women are learning a hatred of the fluffy feminists as well. Not all women have amoral child minds. Some are thinking creatures and understand the awful situation of men who marry and have kids, who then face a 1 in 4 chance, roughly, of being financially massacred in a fluffy feminist-dominated divorce court, losing his kids with 90% probability, losing his house, half his possessions, forced to pay child support to kids he will barely see, and often alimony to his fluffy ex-wife, with no legal or moral obligation on her to fip up and get a job. So these female masculist women sympathise with the gender plight of men and are motivated to help men get the gender laws menfaired, because it is in the self-interest of these young women as well. These women argue that if many young women put moral and political pressure on the gender politicians, then the odds of the gender laws being made menfair go up. Then men will be more likely to be willing to give me their sperm. These female masculists are likely at first to be the more intelligent ones, with professional degrees and real fips, who are intelligent enough to bother understanding MGTOW and masculist ideas and sympathise with them. These female masculists will then start clashing with the fluffy parasites, who will fight to keep the divorce laws so men unfair. Because these fluffy parasites so benefit from them. They want to be able to stay at home in the house that the fluffy feminist hypocrite-dominated divorce court has stolen from her ex-husband and given to her so that she can live in what is now her house to raise her kids and not to have to work. This system is very nice to her, and it is definitely not in her self-interest as a fluffy parasite to want to change it the way the female masculists want. She will fight not only the masculists and the more politically minded of the MGTOWs, but also the female masculists, because all these groups threaten to take away from her her advantages. Female masculists will be faced with a dilemma. That is, they will have to give up their same-sex preference, that is, solidarity with women, that is, fluffy parasite women, and side with the MGTOWs and masculists in helping them fight for the menfairing of the gender laws. But as the number of female masculists grows and grows, as the supply of man-slavable men dries up to zero, which is already well underway, in brackets, at about 70% of young men today living the MGTOW lifestyle and likely to be over 90% within a decade, then these female masculists will have a new group of women that they can bond with, that is, fellow traveller female masculists. The masculists will strongly support the rise of the female masculists, because the more female masculists there are, the higher will be the proportion of people of both sexes who will vote for the menfairing of the gender laws. That is, well over half of the adult population, so that the gender politicians will sense which way the gender wind is blowing and be more inclined to menfair the gender laws or be voted out of power. The masculists will be establishing men's lib groups in every high school and college, putting enormous moral pressure on young women to be FIPs by studying career competent majors at high school and college, so that these women can be FIPs as adults and not be fluffies, expecting to be able to parasite off the money of a man. Increasingly, young fluffies will be spat at by young men and totally ignored, be undated, not even sexed, not even pumped and dumped, but simply punished by men for being fluffies, that is, seen as being immoral, parasitic, manslaving vermin to be wiped out. Of course, young women will not like this terrible moral pressure placed on them by their male peers and male classmates, and will prefer to be free of it. The only way to be free of it is to FIP up, that is, become FIP by studying career competent majors at high school and college. As more women do this, the proportion of young women who choose the soft option, that is the intellectually easy, intellectually lazy majors at high school, will decrease from its current figure of about 2/3 to less than half. The percentage of young women who are then FIPs will increase, so that these young women will feel confident that they can take care of themselves financially as adults, and not feel threatened, as do fluffies, that if they can't attract a manslave to work for them, then they will panic, fearful that they will be poor and on their own with their meagre ability to earn money. These young FIP women will not have the psychology of the fluffy, and hence can concentrate on her manless and babyless problem, and see that it is in her self-interest to help the MGTOWs and masculists to menfair the gender laws. Pushing women to become FIPs and punishing women by not giving them men's sperm is part of masculist political strategy. The masculists strongly want the gender laws to be menfaired. That would go a long way towards the liberation of men, freeing them from the oppressions of the traditional male role of being a manslave to a woman, and then running a 1 in 4 chance of being financially massacred in a fluffy feminist hypocrite-dominated divorce court if he's stupid enough to marry and have kids in the current grossly men-unfair gender landscape. The masculists will push the creation of the female masculist movement using the carrot and the stick. The carrot is the idea that once the gender laws are menfaired, men will be a lot more inclined to have kids again, because a lot of men actually want kids, but dare not have them today due to the toxicity of the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts. Another carrot is that FIP women are spared the awful, suffocating moral pressure that young men will be putting on young fluffies in the high schools and colleges. The stick is that these FIP women, these female The stick is that if these fit women, these female masculists, do not help the masculists and MGTOWs with the menfairing of the gender laws, then the gender politicians, so hated by the masculists, will remain intransigent and continue to support the grossly men-unfair gender laws, particularly the divorce laws, so partial to fluffies, and continue to reject the passage of the paternity rejection right, etc. These gender politicians are no fools. They will look at the opinion polls and see that most women are fluffy feminist hypocrites who want men to be financially massacred in the divorce courts, so that if the gender politicians voted in favour of menfairing the gender laws, then they would be voted out by the female bloc vote. The masculists will push heavily this female bloc vote reasoning to the female masculists, telling them if they don't put strong pressure on the gender politicians, then the gender status quo will not change, so that men will continue to reject marriage and paternity, so that these young women will remain childless, punished by men for not helping men get the gender laws men-faired. Masculists also push the female masculist hard because causing a sizable proportion of women to become female masculists will cause many apolitical MGTOWs to become masculists and start pushing for the menfairing of the gender laws. Most MGTOWs today choose to be apolitical because they know that the female bloc vote is higher than the male bloc vote. The MGTOWs thus remain politically passive. But with many female masculists pushing for the menfairing of the gender laws as well, that changes everything. Once intelligent MGTOWs see that there's a good chance that the gender laws will be menfaired due to the addition of large numbers of female masculists to the male bloc vote, then this will cause many MGTOW to convert themselves into masculists, that is, becoming angry and political, pushing for the menfairing of the gender laws. So, both fit women and the masculists, that is, both sexes, have a common interest in being masculists, that is, male masculists and female masculists. For different reasons, both types of masculists will benefit from the menfairing of the gender laws. Men will be freed from manslavery, will get the see many men-unfair gender laws removed, and women will begin to have babies again and be freed from the awful oppression of men on them for being fluffy parasites, due to these women becoming FIPs and female masculists. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Prof. Hugo de GARIS at yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channels de GARIS Masculist MGTOW Flyers and Hugo de GARIS. Ciao.